welcome back to the Gen X Remix. I'm your host, Tabitha Jones, and today we have a great interview coming up for you. Are you feeling that pain of job searching in a world that has just changed so much over the past few years? Well, if so, job seekers, don't worry. We're going to help you navigate this new landscape with advice to help you find even more success and avoid the pitfalls in this new normal job search. Today, we're talking to my new friend, Akpene Torku. Akpene is a creative and resourceful HR and leadership development professional and consultant with more than 15 years of combined experience, demonstrating success in talent development, strategic planning, training, creation, and learning technologies, as well as labor and employment law compliance. She has an accumulated track record of recommending new approaches, policies, and procedures to effect continuous improvement. She is adept at strategic partnering by creating meaningful relationships to grow people and teams, aiding employee relations, and expertly wrangling order out of chaos, communicating clear strategies and plans. Akpene has consulted and spoken to large groups and to small and medium-sized businesses to help them prioritize their people so they can prioritize their profits and achieve their professional success. We have so many things in common, and this conversation is going to be a great one. So let's welcome Akpene. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Akpene. I can't wait to dive into this conversation.
It is my pleasure. I'm excited for this.
Well, because I love all topics related to midlife and career, this talk is going to be about some of the job search drama that's been going on. It seems like it's been a little crazy since around 2022. Is that what you're saying and seeing?
Yeah, well, the big pandemic, that's when it started, and then it seemed to go downhill from there. But yes, yeah, it's been very, very crazy because everybody thought it would recover and it just went hog wild. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to dive into this. All right, but before we jump into that, I know that one of the things you shared on your intake was about some of your many transitions. So I would love for you to tell us about your coolest remix so far and what inspired you to make the change.
Okay, so I've been through several transitions, as I told you. And I'm not sure if it was the coolest, but I'm happiest with this one. I could say this is that I'll have to go back about 2 transitions back to set the stage. But I was working independently with my own business, coaching and consulting. And then I got married, which was actually the best, coolest transition ever. I love my husband. He's awesome. The most awesome. People can fight me on that one. But after we moved, I wanted to, like, the world had fallen apart and I wanted to help in the HR aspect. So I jumped back into full-time work with a smaller company because I was figuring I could do make the most impact on a smaller company. Theoretically, that's true, but it was a very learning experience. I will have to say that I learned a lot. And there's that saying is that you have $1 million experience you would not pay a dime for. It was one of those. And so it started affecting me so much, it started affecting my mental health. And I dived like head first into depression. Like I didn't even know that's what was happening to me until I started, waking up crying several mornings a week. And my husband was like, we should take a look at things. And so after setting aside time to really process me, my inner emotions and all that stuff, I took some time away. And then at the end of that time, I was like, yeah, I can't go back. Like I thought it was me, but then I realized it was me and I needed to have a shift. So that was like one of the midlife shift moments that I actually flourish as an independent contractor, as a small business owner. And so even though that there are ups and downs, that is where I can be the most stable health wise. And so I would have to say, ever since doing that, again, ups and downs, you have your promised land, you have your plenty, and then you have your desert. And that's okay. So, yeah, that would be my, I guess, my most fulfilling shift. I would term it that way. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. And I love the promised land, the
Mm-hmm.
most fulfilling land and the desert, because that is literally how entrepreneurship works.
Yes.
Having escaped corporate myself after multiple decades,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a journey. And some days are amazing and some days are a little less than amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wouldn't change
Exactly.
it. It's been so good. And oh my gosh. I also love that you recognize the impact that the job was having on your health and that you were willing and ready to make a transition and make a change.
Yeah.
So many women I talk to, they will continue to just sit in the suck because they feel like they have to, or they're stuck,
Mm-hmm.
or there's no other option. And it's really heartbreaking to see because there's always an option. And whether
Yeah.
it's a different job, a different industry, a different
Mm-hmm.
change, make a corporate exit if you can. It's good that you were able to do that and recognize that for yourself.
Yeah, I think it helped that I was doing my small business before, so I knew kind of what it was like, and I wasn't going into it. Um, I wasn't going into it blind, knowing that yes, it's going to be difficult, but that difficulty is preferable, for that.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Well, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about this job search stuff that's going on. So, what are some common issues that you're seeing that seem to impact midlifers a little more than the younger generations?
I think, I mean, there's so many things. Like, what do I start with? Job searching. What I hear a lot is job searching is so much different now than it was even 10, 15 years ago. It really, really is. And so it's navigating that. You can't just show up at a place of business and hand in your resume and ask for an application. Everything is online, every single thing. And so trying to figure out how to do that shift. I've had some clients that were like, I haven't redone my resume in 15 years and I don't even know how to start, what to start with, what do people want to know? And so what people are looking at is that the decision makers are often a lot of the times younger than they are. And so you shouldn't have to go through hoops, but a lot of the times it seems like it because there's a lot of what me and some of my recruiter friends call dimfluencers out there telling you about 1,600 different ways to do your resume, and this is the right thing. And so there's a lot of people who are just very, very confused, and it's very overwhelming. And it's a full-time job looking for a job. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that it's a completely different landscape and it's helping them learn the landscape first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much of that resonates. I had a client once ask me, how do I get 30 years of experience on 2 pages of a resume? I said,
Hmm.
sister, you don't. You
You
don't. Like, we
don't.
got to hide our age just a little bit to get in the door with these youngers that are hiring
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I had another client who showed up for her interview, and one of the people on the interview panel looked at her and said, "Oh my gosh, you remind me so much of my mom." I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh gosh." So I
Yeah.
said, "Well, how did you handle that?" And she said, "Well, it just knocked my confidence out." She said, "Because immediately I knew they thought I was old." And I said, "Okay, well, we're going to give you some ways of managing with people who are younger because it can be scary.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
it has changed so much. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
you've had people come through and they ask you, actually I'm going to tap on this too because you said so many thousands of ways of doing a resume. I have had so many people come back. Well, I've done this and then somebody told me to do that, so I did that and da, da, da. And I'm like, literally your resume is your invitation into the door. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be exactly the way everyone tells you. It needs to
Yeah.
be strategic. It needs to get through the AI. It needs to
Yeah.
get to the hiring manager. What do you tell your clients when they come to you and say, I've submitted all these resumes and I'm still not getting an interview?
I ask to see their resume because a lot of times they're listening to other people and
Mhm.
saying, okay, I need to do it this way. I need to do it this way. I need to do it this way. And sometimes I'll look at it and somebody has put in, like, they'll use the chat GPT or something. And I'm not against that if you use that as your base and not
Sure.
as the actual thing. So first of all, some of them will use the chat GBT and say, okay, this is what I've got. And it's not perfect. In fact, it's not even remotely perfect. Having been HR manager, a recruiter, and everything like that, we can spot that like straight off. It's not natural language. There's some confusing things in there. And so a lot of the times I will start with my experience. It's like, hey, looking from this side of the desk, this is what I want to see. And when I break it down to the simplicities, they're like, oh, oh, that makes so much sense. So I said, you need to, there, like, for a position, there are thousands of people submitting for one position. So you look at the job description, and I need to, in the first glance, I need to see your skills. I need to see words that tell me that A, you read the job description, and B, that you have that experience.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't believe how many resumes that I've looked at that I'm like, I know you can do this job, but I don't see it in this resume.
Oh my
So
gosh, friend, you were speaking my language. It's
yeah.
so interesting to see it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and maybe you see this too, that is noticeable is women applying for higher level roles, director, vice president,
Mhm.
and there's hardly any leadership experience at all on that resume.
Yeah. And I was like, are you a mother? And they're like, yes. I'm like, there are about 15 things you can put on this resume right now that make you sound like the CEO of a large company. Let's like dive into that because
Oh my
that
gosh.
is, again, transferable skills. And so
Yeah.
you can put that, especially for like the what do you call it? The career breakers. No, not career breakers, the breaks in career or breaks in
Yeah.
jobs. And trying to people going back to work after staying home with the kids. You know that you haven't been idle, and you know you've been running a household, so you know you're capable. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. Speaking of career breaks, what is your
Mhm.
thought on career breaks and how do you tell your clients to manage those in the resume and in the interview process?
Well, first of all, I say, girl, we just went through COVID. Do you think you think we nobody has gone through career breaks? Everybody has, and quite honestly, if somebody questions that, then it's their problem and not yours. I need you to be confident about what you did during that time. And then when we're looking at the resume, tell them to be honest, and then whether they feel comfortable with putting in, like we wordsmith it like stay at home mom or working from the home or something like that during that career break. They have that option, but a lot of recruiters nowadays see the gaps and understand somebody may have lost their job, they may have had to take care of somebody for long COVID, or something like that, so it's not uncommon. And then when they're interviewing and somebody has the nerve to bring that up, so most good recruiters I know are like, okay, it happens, but some of them do. You can say, well, I did this before. I had to take a break to take care of this, or I took a break to do this, and during that time, I learned this, that, and the other, and that helped me. It could say that helped me do this, or I realized that made me very suitable, and then take their terminology that may be very suitable to do this, and that I thought this would be a very good fit for the company because I already have that experience, and just
Yeah.
turning it turning it over into
Yeah.
a positive for them.
I love that. We really should normalize career breaks anyway, because I don't
Hmm.
know about you, but I worked 33 years straight without
Hmm.
ever taking a break other than, a
Yeah.
vacation here and there. But,
Yeah.
you know, probably taking some breaks would they help some of us feel a little more healthy and a little bit better about things sometimes.
I was
So
working with a
normalize.
nonprofit organization, and I was very, very much an advocate of doing a sabbatical, of having several months sabbatical for people to stay. And the president actually, the board members listened and said, "Yeah, that's actually a good idea." And I wish more companies would do that.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing that that company did, because I'll
Hmm.
tell you, we don't stop. And, as
Hmm.
women, we tend to get up, our feet hit the ground in the morning, and
Oh,
we don't stop running. We don't stop. And so years
hmm.
and years of that, it does take a toll. So,
Yeah, yeah,
all right, we vote
absolutely.
normalize career breaks.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
So, what are some myths? There's a lot of myths out there, but what do you think are some common job search myths that are getting in the way or slowing down our midlife job seekers?
I think, well, the first one is for everybody. People think that the ATS is this huge monster. And an ATS is an applicant tracking system. It is a digital filing cabinet. People are like, get rid of the ATS. And I'm like, if we got rid of the ATS, you would have a lot of recruiters going postal. And we don't want that. This
We do
helps
not.
them. Yes. Well,
The
this
process
helps
is slow
them.
enough.
Exactly.
Uh,
Helps them keep track of the process of from the moment that you put your application in to the moment that it's dispositioned. Some ATSs are better than others. I would like to string up Workday because I feel like that is a huge barrier, and people use it differently. And if they don't have an HR, especially smaller companies, if they don't have an HR department, they just say, "Oh, let's just press this button." It's horrible. So the ATS is a digital filing cabinet, and 99, I would say 99% of the time, a human sees it. Now, some companies will put in what is it called, the questions like on the application. Do you have this experience? Are you able to work in the US and all that stuff? And depending on how you answer the question, if it's a requirement and you answer no, then you will immediately get shunted over to rejected. It's not because the ATS did it, it's because somebody made the decision that these three qualifications are absolutely necessary. um, so there's still a person behind that, a person making that decision, as far as that's concerned. I have a lot of recruiter friends that just get ragged on so much because they're like, nobody reads that. And their eyes are bloodshot and like looking
Aw.
through all these applications. And so I would have to say for people to read job descriptions, because it does matter. And in this market, it's very competitive. And so before, you heard a lot of comments like, okay, if you only fill 60% of the qualifications, go ahead and apply. Well, there are over 200 or more people applying for that job, and some of them are much more qualified. So read the job description, and if you feel you can do it, say it in your resume.
Mhm.
So if you haven't had this specific job, if you haven't had this project management job, but you've been an executive assistant, doing projects and managing projects, put that verbology in your resume, and that's what will get you through. And so I that's what I would have to say, because I think there's a lot of disappointment, like, oh, I applied for 2,000 jobs, and I'm like, so targeted was your search?
Yeah.
Yes. I know it's very exhausting, but let's search smarter, not harder.
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, to all of
Yeah.
it. Yes. It is really interesting to just kind
Yeah.
of hear the stories of some of the job seeking clients I've worked with and others that have just come in with questions. And It can be a pretty emotional journey, but there
Hmm.
are definitely some ways, to your point, that actually can take some of that emotion out. So instead of
Yeah.
applying for 2,000 jobs, apply for maybe 100 that are targeted, that make sense
Hmm.
based on your skill sets and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Um, what advice do you have for our listener who maybe is thinking of making a career transition? I know it seemed that in 2023, the trend
Hmm.
was for teachers to transition into project management.
Yes. Yeah. Hmm.
So what advice do you have for people who are working on those transitions?
So first of all, I will say my stance on cover letters is that I hate them.
Same.
Second of all, if you're making a career transition, that is going to be your best friend. Um, and so you see that dichotomy right there is that you are going to have to put that effort, extra effort in. You your job search has to be extremely targeted for what you're looking for. And then when you submit your application, the cover letter, you have your experience on your resume. Your cover letter says how your experience will um, add to or help you do the job that you're looking at. Because yes, your resume is an invitation, and your cover letter is shining the lights on how well you can do the job, regardless if you have the title or not. So I would have to say, like, especially for career changers, that's going to be one of the most
Yeah.
vital things. And a super targeted job search in that area.
Yeah, I love that. The interesting thing, just kind of going back to the teachers, is they have so many
Oh
skills
yeah,
that are undervalued and underrated, but they also
yeah.
undervalue and underrate those skills themselves. And as I'm reading resumes, I would kind of chuckle and say like, okay, so did you organize meetings with stakeholders to discuss goals and progress toward goals? Because that's what a parent teacher conference is. And you can talk about the
Yes.
goals, they
Yeah.
established. And she's like, oh, I didn't think. I'm like, yes, get the language. The
Mhm,
language is important. But I love your cover letter advice. I'm also
mhm,
not a cover letter fan, but
mhm.
that makes perfect sense.
Another thing about that is especially well, it was especially for teachers, and I worked with a lot of teachers,
Mhm.
but do your market research on salary because a lot of teachers were not paid very well. So when they were going in to the expectations, most jobs don't do this, but they're still doing this is what is your expected salary? Oh, most teachers will lowball it by about $20,000 to $30,000. And I'm
Oh, yeah.
like, do your market research. Like I would do some intake and somebody would say their what they're looking for. And I would just put my notes aside and I was like, look, you need to do your research. This job range is this. Now, going back to the question. So what's your your expected salary? And I would write and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, okay. I was like, you are worth it. It's okay to ask for that. Just because
Yeah,
you're transitioning does not mean a thing. If you can do the job, that's what the job offers. But yeah,
exactly.
do the market research.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. And so often overlooked.
Hmm.
It is definitely an overlooked strategy there. The interesting thing too is it seems like when that question is asked, what are your salary requirements? Women tend to hold back and kind of choke up a little bit and go low
Hmm.
anyway. But when you're
Yeah,
coming from a career that has historically paid low anyway,
hmm,
it's got to be
yeah,
even a bigger challenge.
yeah,
Wow. So
yeah.
there's some weirdness going on in the hiring space. So let's talk about that a little bit because I am hearing it all the time. Things like ghosting or extremely long interview processes or all kinds of bad behavior. There's a lot
Hmm.
going on. And I
Hmm.
know most recruiters are working their butts off and doing the best thing that they can. What do you think is happening that's leading to some of these issues that we're seeing?
I think these are real issues, and then I think it gets um, conflagrated. I don't know if I'm using the right word there. Um, is that okay? I've had three experience like this, so that means all recruiters are like this, and I don't think that's accurate. But for the bad recruiters, that I want to go up to them and say shame, shame, shame. What they're doing is they're not taking responsibility of the recruiting process. They're hearing from the hiring manager or the president or something like that that doesn't know how things work. I know I had to fight against that a little bit. As far as that's concerned, they're like, well, let's see more candidates, or I'm not really sure. And I said, look, these are people who are putting their time and effort. And A, you might lose them to another company. And B, by the time you're ready, um, they may not be interested. They may have, lost interest, whatever. And so I know that on the back end, there is from some hiring managers and other companies. They're like, okay, but is this the unicorn we're looking for? Um, and I'm like, a unicorn is an imaginary thing.
Right.
And so let's look at what we have, and we have some very good options here. So yeah, some of that is happening. Some of them are just bad behavior. Um, and then some of it, honestly, like for executive level, there's going to be um, multiple interviews.
For
But if
sure.
for somebody in like entry level or even associate level or whatever, there shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 interviews. And if
Yeah.
there is a long interview process, especially with developers, where they ask you for, or marketers, where they ask you for a marketing plan, or they ask you for this long test or whatever, I would, crook an eye about that, because, not all companies are very trustworthy and take your marketing
Mhm.
plan and run with it and never hire you. So
Yeah.
it's okay to say no. And if you're getting a bad feeling, listen to that bad feeling.
Yeah. I uh I tell you, I've seen some interview processes that are 6, 7, 8. I'm like, does everybody need to buy in on this employee? Does it really matter at this point? When I was hiring in my corporate days, I would hire for director or manager roles, and there were
Hmm.
3 interviews. It was the
Hmm.
interview with a group of peers, an interview with my peers, and then I
Hmm.
would come in with that final interview.
Hmm.
Sometimes, I'd weave in a couple of the direct reports, but
Yeah.
unless it's C-suite, executive director, VP, maybe you
Yeah.
don't need more than 3 or 4 interviews, and
Yeah.
frontline generally 2. I mean, it's gotten out of control. It's like
It
people are
has.
afraid to make a bad decision. I make bad decisions all the time. You know what? We just fix it. Most
Yeah.
people, are willing to go the extra mile to learn something new. So maybe just draw a line in the sand and get moving.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I was helping with at my other company, because their interview process was like 3 to 4 months, and I got it down to 6 weeks. I was like,
Yeah.
that's it's not necessary.
No.
There's painful for the company, and then I actually did a time tracking sheet of how much money they were losing by all the interview process, and then
Mhm.
how much money they were losing by not hiring sooner, because you have the onboarding time, which takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months, depending on the technicality of it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys need to shape up. So,
Right. Well, and if the
hmm.
candidate is lucky enough and they're in a job and they're looking to change jobs, that's
Hmm.
a lot of time. I mean, I had a friend that interviewed at a company, 7 interviews over a 2-day period. I was like, could anybody have doubled up at
No.
any point? She had a day
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And the
Exactly.
worst is the people that are out of work that are desperate to find jobs and it's taking 6, 7, 8 months to just get through the
Hmm.
process. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I have actually a couple of clients, and when people sign on with me, I tell them, I know that this is really frustrating, but I need to set your expectations. It's taking anywhere from 6 to 18 months to find a job. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, oh. And I was like, yeah, we need to set expectations, because it's really tough out there. So,
Yeah, so tough. Oh my gosh. Well, if you were to give our listeners 3 bits of advice that could completely transform the way their job search success is going, what would
mhm.
those 3 pieces of advice be?
I think number one is keep it simple. Um, One of the things that I think we've talked about before is the resume, some of the like very, you know, um, flowery resumes and all that stuff. I know from experience that it makes my eyes bleed to see all this different stuff. Keep it simple so that the recruiters and hiring managers can see your accomplishments. I advise putting the skills up at top so that people can see right away that you can do it, and then your experience. Um, and then you put your education at the bottom, no dates. Just no dates, especially when you're in your midlife. You don't need it. And then
Right.
at
And no
most,
high school, no high school.
no high school, no. And then at most 10 years of experience, like detail experience. And then if you want related experience, I would put like other experience down at below. But yeah, keep it simple. And if it, so that's number one. Number two, if it makes you crazy, I need you to take a step back because we're talking about like if you have three coaches and they're saying six different things, you know that this is an opinion, and you don't need to go changing your resume every time somebody says something different because there are different preferences. As long as you have a strong base resume, then and you feel confident about it, that's one thing you need to do is like, yeah, this shows my talents, this shows my skills. And if I need to tweak it for the job that I'm applying to, yes, but don't tweak it just because this influencer says, oh, you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that. So I think that was number two.
Yeah.
And number three, I would have to say is be confident and believe in yourself. Just because you're not hearing from people and just because you've been rejected doesn't mean that you don't have the skills. There are like 200 people vying for one position and they have to choose just one. So it doesn't mean sometimes, and have had it on our end, sometimes we're looking at three very good people and we only have one position open. And so if you've reached that rejection and you know that you could have been a good fit, it just came down to nuance right there. So be confident if you know that you could have done it, and make sure that your resume and the job description align. But be confident and move forward. Um, and just be the courageous woman or courageous person that you are, because you can do this. You can. The people the world needs us. The world needs Gen Xers desperately. And so keep going. So
Yeah.
I guess those are the three biggest things I could say about it.
I love that. Such great advice. It's definitely a different world. It's not like it used to
Mhm.
be.
Yeah.
But absolutely, following that advice is going to make the difference for someone. And, I'd love to tell people to celebrate every time you have an interview. Like it
Yeah.
is okay, celebrate it. I have a friend once that told me, she said, how are you celebrating your accomplishments? I'm like, oh, I'm just going to write them down and I move on. And
Mhm.
she said, if you don't stop and celebrate, the
Yeah.
universe, God, whichever you say, right, doesn't know to send you more of that. It doesn't know that you're grateful. He doesn't
Mhm.
know. And I'm like, oh gosh, all right, God, we're going to celebrate this one. I got it. Right. It's just a
Right.
matter of, remembering to celebrate. You've done hard
Mhm.
things and you've done harder things. So this is
Mhm.
it's a moment in time and it will improve. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So good. So I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to switch real quick. I wanted to
Okay.
ask you about your business name. I was snooping around on your website. So tell me a little bit about your business and your business name.
Okay. So it is Azer Unfolding. And basically, what I do in general is I help people reach their potential. And so I focus on small business leadership coaching and HR consulting. The reason why I picked Azer is that's a Hebrew word that means help, but it's not a oh let me give you a hand type help. Well, I mean it can be, but that's just like oh thanks. But this is a help that comes in when you're in the middle of like desperation and you need like an army to pull you out to victory. That's the kind of help that you need to have somebody walk alongside you, say that you've got this and I'm right behind you. The Aragorn type, you have my sword type thing. And then for me, putting the words Azer, help, unfolding, everybody has excellent potential, has a passion inside of them. And I just love to see it unfold and unbox, show people who they are, and then help them get there. So that's where that name comes from. And then, started coaching and then doing the consulting part of it in the name just always fit. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
I saw that out there and thought I would love for you to share that. So,
Oh,
if our listeners want to reach out to you to learn more, how can they best connect with you?
okay. Well, I'm sure you'll have it on the podcast, but directly at my email, akpenny@azeronfolding.com. There's a contact form that is azeronfolding.com on my website. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I don't do a lot of social media, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Pinterest, and I'm on Alignable, which is a small business network. Um, and then, yeah, I'm always open to have a conversation. I like having conversations, seeing what's out there, and then seeing if people want to move forward.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, we'll definitely include your links in the show notes. And I just thank you so much for being here with us today. Your insights are going to be really helpful for our job seekers. I loved hearing a bit more about your story and I
Yeah.
look forward to continuing to stay connected.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited for what you do. And then for your audience, I think that this is really, really good that you have that focus because I think that's absolutely needed. And so thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Of course. Thank you for joining us on the Gen X Remix today. I hope you learned that it's never too late for a remix. And you can remix a remix if it makes you happy. Also, I know that Akpene and I offer some similar services, which makes some of our more competitive friends a little bit squirmy. The truth is, friends, I firmly believe that when women lift each other up, we all win. So if you're on a job search and you're looking for some extra help in moving forward a bit faster with more strategy, be sure to check the show notes for all of Akpene's contact details. And you'll also see my information in case you have some follow-up questions or comments. Please remember to leave a 5-star review on Apple so other amazing women can find us. Until next time, friends, stay fierce, stay focused, and stay you.